Something happened to me in the morgue, and to this day, I can't look at a body without wondering, is it still empty? I worked the night shift, from 10 at night until 6 in the morning, alone in the basement of Mercy General Hospital, somewhere in the American Midwest where winter comes early and stays until April. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't prestigious. It was just me. 12 refrigerated drawers, the constant hum of the industrial air conditioner, and the smell of formaldehyde that clings to the skin even after 3 showers. People always asked if I wasn't afraid. I laughed. Afraid of what? The dead don't do anything. They just stand there, silent, cold, inert. It's the silence that's unsettling at first, that kind of heavy silence that seems to be waiting something. But you get used to it. Or you think you get used to it. The main room was L-shaped. When you entered, you saw the row of steel drawers on the left, the autopsy table in the center, and the industrial sink at the back. There were no windows, just cold, clinical white fluorescent light, and an automatic system that I hated, motion sensors combined with an energy-saving timer. If you stood still for too long, or if you left the room, the lights would turn off by themselves. The first time it happened, I was filling out paperwork at the side table. The light just went out. Total darkness. My heart raced. Instinct, you know. But before I could move, it came back on. I blinked a few times, adjusted my eyes, and continued. But that night, I heard something. It was subtle. A metallic sound. Like a drawer had slid slightly. Just a few centimeters. That kind of sound almost. He ignores it. But it keeps nagging at him afterward. I got up. I walked to the drawers. All closed. All locked. I checked each one. Nothing out of place. I went back to the table. The light went out again. This time, I stood motionless in the dark. I took a deep breath. I counted to 5. The light came back on, and that's when I realized the analog clock on the wall, that old, broken one, always stopped at 3:47. It was swinging slightly, as if someone had bumped into the wall. But I was on the other side of the room. I convinced myself it was the air conditioner vibrating, that the sound was the metal contracting in the cold, that my brain was creating patterns where there were none. But when I turned to leave, I felt it. I saw nothing. I heard nothing. But I felt that primal, animalistic feeling that something was looking at me, that I wasn't alone, that the second the light went out, something had moved, and now it was still, waiting, watching. I left the room. I went to the break room. I drank some water. I waited for my heart rate to slow down. When I returned, everything was exactly as I had left it. But the air, it was different, denser, as if it had been breathed. I should have quit that first night, but I didn't. Because admitting something was wrong would mean admitting I was feeling something. And I couldn't afford to feel. Not in that job. Not in that life. So I returned. Night after night. And things got worse. The lights started going out more frequently. It didn't matter how much I moved, how busy I kept my hands. The sensor seemed to have developed a will of its own. Darkness. 5 seconds. 10. Sometimes 20. And in those seconds, I heard things. Breathing. Not mine. Something heavy, damp, coming from somewhere near the drawers. The dragging of fingernails on metal. The sound of zippers being pulled slowly, inch by inch, as if something were trying to go out. I immediately turned on my phone's flashlight. I swept the room. Nothing. The drawers were closed. The body bags were intact. Everything was in its place. But my skin was crawling. My breathing was becoming irregular. And you knew, deep down, in the place where logic can't reach, something had happened in those dark seconds. On the 5th night, I was preparing a body for transfer. A man in his 60s, heart attack, nothing unusual, cold, rigid body, eyes closed. I was adjusting the position of his head when the light went out. I stood motionless, hands still on my body, in total darkness, and then I felt it, a breath, cold, damp, on the back of my neck. My blood froze. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just lay there, my hands on the chest of a corpse, feeling something, someone breathe behind me. The lights came back on. I turned my head, too fast, almost falling. Nothing. The room was empty. But when I looked down at the body I was touching, his head was turned. For me, eyes still closed, mouth slightly open, head turned at an angle that I had left. My hands were trembling. I repositioned my head, quickly, steady. I left the room. I went to the hallway. I took a deep breath, trying to regain control. 5 minutes later, I returned. Drawer number 7, the same one where I had placed the body, was ajar, just about 3 centimeters. Enough to see the edge of the black body bag. I hadn't left it like that. Istride, the drawers. Always. I approached slowly. The temperature in the room had dropped. My breath came out in clouds of steam. I placed my hand on the drawer handle. I pulled. The body was there, intact, in the correct position. But when I closed the drawer, I heard a low, muffled sound, coming from within, something like a sigh. I stepped back. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I looked around. All the other drawers, all closed, all silent, but now I knew. Something was using the bodies, in the dark, when no one was watching. And whatever it was, it had seen me again. If this made you uncomfortable, wait for the next chapter. That was my last night. I had made up my mind. As soon as my shift ended, I would send my resignation email. The money didn't matter. The lack of explanation didn't matter. I was leaving, but something wouldn't let me go so easily. It was 2 in the morning when the lights went out for the last time. But this time, they didn't come back on. I stood there, in the middle of the room, holding a clipboard, waiting for the automatic click. 5 seconds. 10. 20. Nothing. I picked up my cell phone. The screen illuminated my face, but the battery was at 12%. I turned on the flashlight. The beam of light cut through the darkness, but it seemed weak, as if something were absorbing the light. And then, I heard it. Footsteps, barefoot, on the cold concrete floor. They weren't mine. I turned the flashlight towards the drawers. The sound stopped. Everything was silent, but the air was heavy, laden, like before a storm. And the smell, God, the smell. It wasn't formaldehyde. It was decomposition, recent, alive. A drawer slid open, slowly, metallic, alone, then another and another. 3 open drawers, in the dark, and from inside them, I could hear breathing, multiple, rhythmic, wet. My hand was shaking so much I almost dropped my phone. I pointed the light at the first drawer. Empty. Just the bag's body, motionless. I pointed it at the second. Same thing. But when I pointed to the third one, something moved inside. It wasn't the body. It was another thing, something that I was using. The body. I saw the zipper open from the inside out. I saw something pale, shapeless, sliding out like solid smoke. I stepped back. I banged on the back of the autopsy table. The flashlight flickered. The battery dropped to 3%, and that's when I heard my own voice. Coming from one of the open drawers, my voice, whispering my name. I ran. I didn't think, I just ran. I left that room, climbed the stairs, ignored the elevator. My feet pounded on the floor, my heart pounding in my chest. I arrived at the reception. The lights were on. Everything normal. Silence. I looked back. The corridor leading to the basement was dark, but 2 felt Something had followed me there, standing at the edge of the light. Watching. I left the hospital. I got in the car. I drove home without looking in the rearview mirror. I sent the resignation email before sunrise. 3 weeks passed. I got another job. Day shift. Far from hospitals. Far from bodies. But there are nights when I wake up sweating, feeling that icy breath on the back of my neck. And there are nights when I walk past Mercy General, unintentionally, I swear, and look out the basement window. The light goes out. For a second, just 1 second, and me I see, a silhouette, standing still, looking back. I don't know if they were using the bodies, or if the bodies were letting something use them. But now I know, in the dark, something awakens and waits. And if you're listening to this, maybe you're already expecting it. For you also. Something happened to me, and to this day, I can't understand it. I worked the night shift at a municipal morgue in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. 6 months ago, I took this job because I needed silence. I needed a place where no one would ask me questions, where I could exist without having to pretend I was okay. The routine is simple. I receive the bodies, register them, organize the drawers. Sometimes I prepare documents for the following morning. The building is old, the basement of a hospital that has seen better days. White tiled walls, cold lighting that hums constantly, and that smell of formaldehyde mixed with something metallic that never leaves your throat. There are 7 refrigerated drawers in the main room. Numbers 1 through 6 follow standard protocol. The seventh should never be used, not during my shift. That's what they told me on the first day. The last drawer is left empty. Understand, it's protocol, technical maintenance issues. I didn't question it. I never question it. But 3 weeks ago, something changed. It was a Tuesday, 2:40 in the morning. I was finishing up the paperwork when I heard a metallic click coming from the filing cabinet, that characteristic sound of a lock being released. I stood up slowly, my heart already racing for no apparent reason. The hallway to the living room seemed longer than usual. Each step echoed against the tile. The hum of the air conditioner seemed louder, almost aggressive. When I entered, drawer 7 was slightly open, just about 5 centimeters, enough to see that there was something inside. My breath caught in my throat. There was no record of an entry. No body had arrived that night. I would have heard the doorbell, the transport, the procedures. But there it was. Something. I approached slowly, every muscle tense. The air around the drawer was colder than the rest of the room, freezing. My breath came out in thick clouds. I gripped the handle. The metal was freezing, burning my palm. I pulled. Inside, wrapped in the standard black bag, was a body, human form, completely still. The zipper was closed, but I could see the outline. Adult. Thin. The hands appeared to be crossed over the chest. My first instinct was to check the system. I rushed back to reception and opened the digital register. Nothing. No entries after 9:47 p.m. Drawer 7 had been marked as inactive maintenance since April. I went back to the room. The drawer remained open. The body was still there. That's when I felt it for the first time. A pressure in my chest. It wasn't exactly pain. It was as if something was pushing from the inside out, as if my lungs were being slowly compressed, but by something that wasn't physical. I took a step back. The pressure eased. I looked at the body bag. For a second, I swear it was only a second, I thought I saw the outline move. Not much, just a slight adjustment. Like when someone takes a deep breath before waking up. I slammed the drawer shut. The latch clicked too loudly. I left the room. I didn't return until dawn. When the supervisor arrived at 6 o'clock, drawer 7 was empty again. As it should always be, I didn't say anything. What could I say? A body appeared out of nowhere, and then disappeared. They would think I was wearing something heavy on duty. But the feeling in my chest that stayed with me all day. And the following night, when I returned, the drawer was ajar again. I should have resigned that week. But I didn't ask. I don't know why. Maybe because the rational part of me still believed there was a logical explanation. Maybe because I had nowhere else to go. Or maybe because a strange part of me needed to understand. The drawer kept appearing open, not every night, but often enough that I stopped being surprised. Always between 2 and 3 in the morning. Always the same metallic click. And there was always something inside. I learned not to open it completely. I only observed through the crack, the black body bag, the motionless form, the crossed hands. But I began to notice details. On the 5th night, their hands were in a different position, more open, their fingers slightly curved, as if they were holding something invisible. On the 8th night, the body seemed larger, taller, the feet pushed against the end of the bag in a way that hadn't happened before. I wrote everything down in a notebook I kept hidden in my backpack. I made pathetic sketches of the positions. He measured the temperature around the drawer with a digital thermometer he brought from home, always between 2 degrees and 5 degrees C. Impossible for an inactive drawer. But the worst part wasn't the physical changes. That's what happened to me when I got too close. The pressure in my chest intensified more and more. By the 2nd week, it wasn't just pressure anymore. It was weight. As if someone had placed a concrete block on my sternum. My breathing became short and shallow. I was sweating profusely, even in the cold air of the room. And then the memories began. Fragments, flashes, images that shouldn't be there. I saw my brother, Daniel. He died 7 months ago. Accidental overdose of painkillers after knee surgery. I found the body. That's why I took this job, to force myself to face death head-on, to stop running from it. But the memories that were near the drawer weren't mine. They were his. I could see his room. The wrong perspective. From inside the bed, looking at the ceiling, the numbness creeping up my legs, the slow, silent panic, the certainty that something was wrong, but the inability to move. I could feel everything. One night, while I was looking in the drawer, I heard something, a muffled sound, coming from inside the bag. It wasn't breathing. Not exactly. It was more like a scratch, light, like fingernails against fabric, coming from the inside out. My body froze. The pressure in my chest exploded into something close to physical pain. My vision blurred at the edges. I took 3 steps back. The sound stopped, but the drawer remained slightly open. I knew I should close it, push the damn thing and lock it. But I couldn't move, because at that moment, as I stared into that dark crack, I had an irrational and terrifying certainty. If I closed that drawer, something inside me would close with it. It was as if there were an invisible cord connecting my chest to that body. And with each passing night, that cord grew shorter. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. I looked in the mirror. My face was pale, with deep dark circles under my eyes, and purple lips. I looked like a corpse. I returned to the room 3 hours later, when the sky was beginning to lighten. The drawer was closed. Everything was normal. But when I put my hand on my chest, I felt my heart beating, differently, slow down, as if I were starting to forget how to function. On my last night working at the morgue, I finally understood. 23 days had passed since the drawer first appeared open. 23 nights of slow deterioration. I had lost 6 kilos. I couldn't sleep during the day. When I closed my eyes, I saw that shape in the body bag. I felt the cold of the drawer. I heard the scratching. My friends stopped calling. My mother would call, but I'd let it go to voicemail. What would I say? Mom, I think I'm switching places with a ghost. She'd already lost 1 son. She couldn't lose both. That night, I arrived at 10. The building was quieter than usual. Not even the constant hum of the air conditioning seemed to be present. Just a dense, humid silence, as if the air were waiting for something. I did the routine automatically. Registration, paperwork. Coffee, I didn't drink. 12:47 a.m. I heard the click, but this time it was different. It was louder, more definitive, as if something had been permanently unlocked. I stood up slowly. My body felt heavy, my movements slow, as if I were underwater. The pressure in my chest was already there, constant, familiar. I had gotten used to it. That should have scared me more. I entered the room. Drawer number 7 was completely open. Not ajar. Open. Completely out, exposed, as if someone or something had simply pulled it forcefully. The body bag was there, but the zipper was halfway open. I could see his face. My heart should have raced. I should have run, but instead, I took a step forward, then another one. The air was freezing. My breath no longer formed clouds, as if my body no longer produced enough heat. One more step. I could see better now. His face was pale, waxy, his lips slightly bluish. His eyes were closed. His brown hair was disheveled. He was thin, very thin. I recognized that face. It was mine. It wasn't Daniel. It was me, my body, my face, every detail. The small scar on my left eyebrow from when I fell off my bike at age 9. The birthmark on my neck that I've always tried to hide. It was me, and he was dead. The pressure in my chest exploded. It wasn't pressure anymore. It was emptiness. As if someone had ripped out my lungs and left only a hollow. My knees buckled. I fell to the side, bracing myself against the cold wall. That's when the body's eyes opened. Not dramatically, not suddenly. They just opened. Slowly. Like someone waking from a deep sleep. And they looked at me. Those eyes were mine. Same color, same shape. But there was something wrong with them. Something empty. Something that had already given up. The mouth moved. No sound. Just the lips forming words. You should have accepted. My vision blurred. I felt my body slide down the wall, the cold floor against my cheek. The last thing I saw was that body, my body, slowly sitting down inside the drawer. The movement stiff and awkward. He climbed down from the drawer. He took a step. Then another one, walking towards me. When I woke up, I was outside the morgue. It was 5:43 in the morning. The sky was beginning to lighten with that grayish-purple hue typical of Portland. I was sitting on the curb, shivering violently, my jacket soaked with cold sweat. I don't remember how I left. I don't remember walking. I resigned via email that same day. I didn't go back to get my things. But since that night, something has been wrong. I don't sleep anymore. Not really. I just pass out for a few hours and wake up with no memory of what I dreamed. My reflection in the mirror sometimes takes half a second to catch up with me. And every night, at exactly 2:40 in the morning, I feel that pressure in my chest, that weight, that cold. It was as if something was pulling me back. Yesterday, I unintentionally walked past the hospital. I don't know why. My feet simply led me there. I looked towards the entrance to the basement, and for a second, just a second, I saw someone at the window. Someone who used to wear my jacket, my face, looking at me, waving. I no longer know if I'm on the outside or the inside. I don't know if I'm the one telling this story, or if I'm the one waiting in the drawer. And the worst part is that every night, the feeling that I need to go back gets stronger, as if there were a place reserved for me in the last drawer, the one that should never be empty. I want to know where you're hearing this from. Comment with your city, just in case. Something happened to me, and to this day I can't understand it. I work as a morgue technician in Greene County, Oregon. My shift is midnight to 8 in the morning. It's not glamorous, it's not noble, but it pays the bills. And after my divorce, I needed something to keep me busy while the rest of the world slept. The first time it happened was on a Tuesday. I remember arriving at the morgue around 11:45 p.m. The parking lot was empty. Just my blue Civic under the lamppost that's been flickering ever since I moved here. The building is low, gray, with no windows on the sides. It looks like a warehouse. And in a way, it is. I swiped my badge. The heavy door creaked, and the icy air hit me. Always like this. 16 degrees Celsius. The smell of formaldehyde mixed with something metallic that never leaves my nostrils. The fluorescent lights hum. They always hum. They flicker occasionally, especially in the hallway leading to the preparation room. That night, we had 2 bodies. A man, 68 years old, heart attack. A woman, 34, car accident on Interstate 5. Nothing unusual. I grabbed the clipboard, put on my latex gloves, that dry snap against the skin, and began. I remember opening the refrigerated drawer. The metallic creak echoed. I remember pulling out the stretcher. The woman's body was covered. Pale skin, purple bruises on her left shoulder, blonde hair stuck to her forehead. And then, nothing. An emptiness. I woke up, or rather, I went back, standing in the same room, but now the woman was fully prepared, tag on her toe, form filled out, Y-shaped incision closed with surgical precision. The tools were clean and organized on the tray beside her. I looked at the clock on the wall. 1:17 a.m. I had lost almost an hour. My heart raced. I looked around. Nobody. Just me. Always. Just me on the night shift. I picked up the form. My handwriting, my signature, everything correct, everything perfect, but I didn't remember doing any of that. I took a deep breath. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was insomnia. I hadn't slept properly in weeks. The pills weren't working anymore. Maybe I'd gone into autopilot. It happens, right? I finished my shift. I locked everything up. I went home. But as I drove down the empty road, I felt something strange. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel, and when I looked down, even after washing it 3 times, there was still something dark under my fingernails, something that shouldn't be there. I didn't tell anyone. How would I explain it? Hey boss, I think I blacked out for an hour, and when I came back I'd already finished an entire autopsy by myself. They'd send me straight to psychological evaluation. And after the divorce, after Susan said I was emotionally absent, I couldn't afford to seem unstable, so I went back the following night, and it happened again. This time it took 40 minutes. I was cataloging the belongings of a John Doe, a man, approximately 50 years old, found in a ditch near Salem. No identification, no wallet, nothing. Just a faded tattoo on his forearm, a raven. I remember putting his clothes in a plastic bag. I remember the smell of damp, somewhat rotten earth. And then, emptiness. When I returned, the body was on the table, open, the thoracic cavity exposed, organs removed, weighed, labeled, everything done. But what gave me the creeps was this. I was standing beside the table, my right hand still holding the scalpel. My glove was stained with blood up to the wrist, and on the chart, there was a note I didn't recognize. It wasn't my handwriting. Era similar, but the letters were more angular, more cramped, as if someone were trying to imitate my handwriting and almost succeeding. The note said, lungs compromised, signs of prolonged asphyxia. I looked at the body, at the lungs on the tray. They were dark, swollen. I wouldn't know how to identify that. I'm not a pathologist. I just prepare, document, clean. But someone knew. and that someone was using my hands. I started recording myself. I bought one of those small security cameras and hid it in a cabinet overlooking the rehearsal room. If I was having lapses, I needed to see what the hell I was doing during them. On Thursday, I arrived early. I set up the camera. I turned it on. The red light blinked twice. Confirmed. The body found that night was a woman. Suicide by overdose. 28 years old. Black hair. Eyes still half open. Glazed. Staring into nothingness. I started the procedure. I documented everything. I weighed. I measured. I filled out the form. And then I felt it. The atmosphere changed. It became heavy, as if someone had closed all the doors at once. The temperature dropped. My breath turned to mist. I could see my own breath escaping in white clouds, and then the light flickered. Once. 2. Darkness. When he returned, I was on the other side of the room, with his back to the table, looking at the wall. I turned slowly. The woman was still there. But now, the incision was made. The work was complete. 2 hours had passed. 2 hours. I ran to the closet. I grabbed the camera. My hand was shaking so much I almost dropped it. I rewound the video. I pressed play. The screen showed an empty room. Me entering. Starting work. And then, static. Just static. For exactly 2 hours. And in the end, when the image returned, I was there, standing still, with my back to the table, as if I had never moved. But the body was prepared. That night, while I was cleaning, I felt something. A presence. It wasn't my imagination. It was physical. Like icy fingers brushing against the back of my neck. Like an invisible weight pressing on my shoulders. I'll come. Nothing. Just the metal drawers. The lights buzzing. The heavy silence. But you knew. Something was there. Watching. Waiting. And when I looked down, I saw my hands. They were trembling. But it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. It was as if my body knew something that my mind didn't yet understand. Something was using me, and I was starting to like it. I noticed the pattern on a Friday. It didn't happen to all the bodies, only to some. The unidentified ones, the violent ones, the ones who died with their eyes open. I started taking notes, dates, times, cause of death. And I realized whenever a John Doe arrived, or someone who died brutally, the blackouts happened. It was like this, so they would know, as if they were waiting. On Monday, I arrived early, before midnight. The morgue was in absolute silence. Not even the hum of the lights. Nothing. I went to the back cupboard. I'd never really looked in there before. Just old files, outdated forms, forgotten uniforms. But deep down, beneath a pile of yellowed papers, I found something. A notebook, worn leather cover, stained pages, handwritten, cramped, shaky lettering, shelter. The first page said, "My name is David Marsh. If you're reading this, then you're feeling it too." My blood ran cold. I continued reading. David worked there, autopsy technician, night shift, between 2009 and 2011. The notes started out normal, procedures, bodies, causes of death. But after a few months, they changed. I lost 30 minutes today. I don't remember finishing the procedure, but it's done. It happened again. This time it was an hour. My handwriting is different on the form. It's not me writing. I feel something behind me when I'm working. When I turn around, there's nothing there. But I know it's there. I turned the pages, faster and faster. My breathing quickened. My heart pounded in my chest like a drum. And then the final entry, dated March 14th, 2011. I've discovered the truth. They don't want the dead. They need living hands to finish what they left unfinished. They get inside us. They use our bodies. And when they're done, they never truly leave. I'm going to try to get out. I'm going to quit my job tomorrow. I need to leave before it's too late. Below, in even more shaky, almost illegible handwriting, I can't leave. I always come back. Always. And then, nothing. Blank pages. I searched the system. David Marsh, autopsy technician. Registered until April 2011. Reason for absence, indefinite medical leave. He never came back. I tried to leave. I swear I tried. On Tuesday, I called my supervisor. I said I needed a few days off, that I wasn't feeling well. He agreed. I stayed home. I locked the doors. I took my medication. I tried to sleep. But at 11:30 p.m., I felt it. A need. It wasn't desire. It was like hunger, like thirst. My body rose on its own. I grabbed the keys. I got in the car, and I drove. I drove to the morgue. I swiped my badge. The door opened. The cold air enveloped me. And when I entered the preparation room, there was a new body. John Doe, male, approximately 40 years old. Violent death. Gunshot wound to the chest. I looked at him. And listen, recognition. As if he already knew him. As if he had done this before. Not in this life, but somewhere, at some time. I put on the gloves, and then I felt the pressure. It started at the nape of my neck. Cold, heavy. It went down my spine, through my arms, to my hands. I tried to resist. I tried to scream, but my mouth wouldn't obey. And then, emptiness. I woke up 3 hours later, outside, in the parking lot. Barefoot. The icy asphalt burned my feet. My shirt was open. I was shivering. The morning air cut through my skin. I looked down. In my right hand, I was holding something, a label. Body identification. But the name wasn't John Doe's inside. It belonged to someone who hadn't arrived yet. Unknown. Male, approx. 32 years old. Probable cause, asphyxiation. And below, handwritten in handwriting that wasn't mine, Lucas, my name. I went back inside. I locked the door. I sat on the cold floor of the prep room. And then I understood. It wasn't possession. Era replacement. They didn't kick me out. They pushed back. They made me observe. They made me feel everything, but without control. And the more I resisted, the stronger they became. I looked at the mirror on the wall. My reflection was blurry. Condensation covered the glass. But for a second, just a second, I saw another face superimposed on mine. Deeper set eyes, paler skin, mouth slightly open, and then he smiled. It wasn't me, but it was inside me. And it always has been. From the very first night, since the first blackout, from the very first body. I still work here. I can't get out. Every time I try, I turn back, and the blackouts. Now they last almost the entire shift. Sometimes I wake up in places I don't remember going to, with things I don't remember doing. But the work is always impeccable, always perfect. As if other hands that know death from within, were guiding mine. And the worst part? I'm not afraid anymore. I accept, because now I know. They do not possess the dead. They borrow from the living, and I'm just another one. If you're still here, subscribe. Few people make it this far. I've worked with the dead for 8 years, and until 3 weeks ago, none of them ever reacted to what I was thinking. But now I know. They feel. And what they feel is fear of losing me. My name is Marcus. I'm a morgue technician in the basement of Ashford Municipal Hospital, a small town in rural Ohio. I work alone on the midnight to 6 in the morning shift. No cameras working, no guards around. Just me, the hum of the freezers, and the chemical smell of formaldehyde that clings to my skin even after a shower. I chose this job because the dead don't talk. They don't judge. They don't ask for anything. They're predictable. Protocol. Labels. Reports. Silence. Exactly what I needed after years of trying to fit into jobs where people expected me to smile, make friends, care. Down here, nobody expects anything from me. Or at least, that's how it was. It was a Tuesday 3 weeks ago. I was filling out paperwork at my steel desk when I thought, for the first time in years, clearly and consciously, next Monday, I'll hand in my resignation. It wasn't an impulse. I was tired. Tired of the cold. Tired of the solitude I chose for myself. Tired of living in a basement where daylight never enters. I thought about changing, maybe trying something normal, maybe trying to live. And at the exact moment that thought formed in my head, the drawer in freezer number 7 creaked. It wasn't a loud sound. It was subtle, metallic, as if something inside had moved slightly, shifting the weight. I looked. Nothing. I continued writing. Then the camera's digital thermometer went off. The internal temperature rose from 2 degrees C to 4 degrees C in seconds. The alarm didn't sound. It never works properly. But the red light flashed twice before returning to normal. I stood up. I walked to the chamber. I opened it slowly. Inside was the body of a man in his 50s. Cause of death, heart attack. Arrived yesterday. Gray skin, rigid, cold. But as I was looking, the index finger of his right hand twitched. Just once. A post-mortem muscle spasm. Technically possible. Gas, stiffness, calcium release in the fibers. I learned this in training, but in 8 years, I had never seen anything like it. I closed the drawer. I went back to the table. I tried to ignore it, but something inside me knew it wasn't a coincidence. Something had noticed, my thought, and he reacted. I spent the next 3 days trying to convince myself it was just a coincidence. Muscle spasm, thermometer malfunction, old building, old equipment, nothing serious. But on Friday night, while organizing medical records, the thought returned. Stronger, more concrete. Monday, I'm going to deliver the letter. I'm leaving here. And this time, the reaction was immediate. I heard a muffled sound coming from freezer number 3. It wasn't a creaking sound. It was a dull thud, as if something inside had hit the metal. My heart raced. I stood motionless for a few seconds, listening only to the hum of the freezers and my own breathing becoming heavy. Then I slowly stood up and walked to the chamber. Shelter. Inside was a young woman, her early 20s, overdose. Pale skin, almost translucent in the cold light. She was lying on her side, just as I had positioned her yesterday. But now, her left hand was clenched. When I placed her there, her fingers were relaxed, open. I remember. I always remember those details. It's part of the protocol. It's part of what little sanity I have left. But now her hand was closed, tight, as if she had been holding something, or trying to grab something. I took a deep breath. I touched her pulse, cold, hard, dead. I closed the drawer. But as I walked away, I heard it again, a muffled sound, coming from camera number 5, after 7, after 2, one after the other, as if they were responding. My stomach churned. I ran back to the table, grabbed the flashlight, and started opening the drawers, one by one. Camera 5, elderly man, mouth slightly open. It wasn't like that before. Chamber 7, the same body as during the heart attack. Now both fingers of the right hand were contracted. Camera 2. Teenager. Car accident. The eyes were half open. Just a sliver. But I was sure, absolute certainty, that when he arrived, her eyelids were completely closed. I received it. My breath echoed in the heavy silence of that place. And then, I felt it. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't a visible movement. It was a presence. It was as if something enormous, invisible, and ancient was filling every inch of that underground space. As if the air had become denser, heavier, and I was being watched. Not on the outside, inside. Something inside my head, feeling my thoughts, reading my intention to leave, and I was scared. It wasn't anger, it wasn't hatred, or a fear, as if whatever inhabited that place needed me to stay. I closed all the drawers. I went back to my desk. I tried to finish my shift, but until the end of the night, I felt that weight watching me. When I left at 6 in the morning, under the dim light of dawn, I took a deep breath, and I thought for the last time, I'm leaving. On Monday, I arrived with my resignation letter in my pocket. I went downstairs at 11:50 p.m. as usual. The hallway was empty. The service elevator was broken, as usual. The fluorescent light was flickering on the ceiling, as usual. But when I pushed open the morgue door, I felt that something was different. The air was colder, not the normal cold of freezers. It was a cold, wrong damp, heavy, as if the entire basement had turned into a giant freezer. I entered slowly. The lights flickered twice before stabilizing. I put my backpack on the chair. I took a deep breath. I took the envelope out of my pocket and placed it on the steel table. And in the exact second, my fingers let go of the paper. All the drawers creaked at the same time. My blood froze. It wasn't one drawer. It wasn't two. They were all 12 refrigerated chambers, 12 bodies, all reacting simultaneously. The metallic sound echoed off the walls like a dark and sickly chorus. I instinctively recoiled until my back hit the cold wall. Then, silence returned, heavy, oppressive, suffocating. I knew what I had to do. I knew it was madness, but something inside me, something that wasn't quite there anymore. He pushed me forward. I walked to the first drawer. Shelter. The man who had suffered a heart attack had his eyes open, fully open, fixed on me. I closed my eyes quickly. My breath came out in short, trembling bursts. I opened the second one. The young woman, mouth slightly open, as if she were about to whisper something. Third drawer, fourth, fifth, all the same. Eyes open, mouths trembling slightly, fingers clenched. It wasn't decomposition. It wasn't protocol. It wasn't science. Error reaction. And then I heard it, not with the ears. In my head, a voice, weak, fragmented, as if it came from afar, or from within. He is. My heart almost stopped. Stay. With us. It wasn't a voice. It was several overlapping, echoing inside my skull like a collective, desperate whisper. I took a step back. I tripped. I fell to my knees on the cold floor. And that's when I understood. It wasn't the bodies. It was something oozing the bodies. Something that inhabited that underground. Something ancient, hungry, lonely. Something that, for some reason, chose me. Not to hurt me. For me to maintain. Because as long as I was there, he wouldn't be alone. I got up, stumbling. I picked up the envelope. I tore it into small pieces and threw it in the trash. The next instant, all bodies relaxed, hands opened, mouths closed, eyes returned to their usual dead emptiness. The cold weather has lessened. The weight disappeared. It's become just a morgue again. But I knew the truth. I sat in the chair. I looked around, at the metal drawers, at the bodies that now rested in silence. And I whispered softly, "I'll stay." Because it was no longer a choice. It would never be again. Tell us in the comments if you think this was real. Or something worse. Something happened to me, and to this day I can't understand it. I've been living alone for 6 months. Ground floor apartment in Portland and Oregon. One of those 1970s buildings that seem perpetually damp, with faded carpet in the hallway and windows that never seal properly. I work from home, freelance graphic designer, no fixed hours, no colleagues, no reason to go out, most days. The dresser came from my grandmother's house. She died last year. My mother insisted I keep some furniture. Good things, made of real wood, she said. I agreed because I needed something to store clothes. It's a large, heavy piece, 5 drawers, dark wood, almost black. It smells of mothballs and something older, something that doesn't go away even after cleaning. At first, it was just exhaustion. I work late, sometimes until 3 or 4 in the morning. I edit logos, adjust color palettes, answer emails from clients I never see. The bluish light of the screen is my only company. And the silence, that heavy silence that only those who live alone know. It was a Tuesday, 3:30 in the morning. I was finishing a delivery when I heard it. A whisper, low, muffled, as if someone were speaking from the other side of a thick wall. I paused what I was doing. I turned off the background music. I listened. Nothing. I went back to work. About 5 minutes later, I heard it again. This time, I paid attention. It was coming from the bedroom, more specifically, from the direction of the dresser. I got up slowly. My heart was already racing, but I tried to convince myself it was the water pipe, or the wind, or the neighbors upstairs. I arrived at the bedroom door. I turned on the light. The dresser was there, as always, solid, silent. I laughed at myself. Exhaustion, stress, too many headphones. I went back to the computer, but then I heard it clearly. My voice. It wasn't a similar voice. It was the voice, the timbre, the rhythm, the breathing. As if I had recorded something and left it playing somewhere. But I hadn't recorded anything. I was paralyzed. The voice was whispering something I couldn't understand. Jumbled words, fragments. But it was unmistakable. I approached the dresser. Slowly. Each step creaked on the wooden floor. The whispering stopped. I stood there, staring at those 5 closed drawers. I took a deep breath, and I opened the first one. Empty. Only the lining of old, slightly yellowed paper remains. I closed it. I opened the second one. Nothing. The third one. Nothing. I started to feel ridiculous. So, as I was closing the last drawer, I heard it again, coming from inside the wood. My voice, whispering. And this time, I understood what she was saying. You are too alone. I recoiled. My back hit the wall. My heart was pounding, because that was exactly what I had thought earlier that night. But I never said it out loud. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, my back to the wall, staring intently at the bedroom door. The light was on. My cell phone was in my hand, and I didn't know who to call. What would I say? Hi, Mom. I think Grandma's dresser is talking to me. When the sun rose, I felt like an idiot. Extreme fatigue causes auditory hallucinations. I had read about it. Sleep deprivation, isolation. It made sense. I worked all day without going into the bedroom. I took a quick shower, grabbed clean clothes from the dryer, and avoided looking at the dresser. But at night, he returned. This time, it was 2 a.m. I was in the living room, laptop on my lap, trying to concentrate, and I heard it. It was no longer a distant whisper. It was nearby. It was as if someone were right behind me, whispering in my ear. My voice said, "You shouldn't be here." I jumped up. I looked around. Nothing. Nobody. The sound had come from the direction of the room again. I went over there. I turned on all the lights. The dresser was exactly as I had left it. I stood there, breathing heavily. And then, I heard it coming from the second drawer. "You know this isn't going to get better." My stomach churned, because it was true. I thought about that yesterday when I looked at my empty weekend schedule and realized I had no one to talk to. I opened the second drawer forcefully. Empty. I pressed my ear against the wood. Total silence. I closed the drawer slowly and heard a different sound. Scratches. Light. Methodical. Like fingernails dragging inside the wood. I stepped back. My breathing was erratic. The following nights were worse. The whispers began to come from different drawers. Sometimes, all at once. 2, 3 voices, all mine, talking amongst themselves in a very low volume, as if they were discussing something I shouldn't hear. I tried recording it on my phone. Absolute silence in the recording. I tried to sleep in the living room. The whispers came through the wall. I started avoiding the apartment. I would spend hours in cafes, libraries, anywhere, but I always had to go back. And when he returned, the dresser was waiting. One night, I came home and the third drawer was ajar. I was sure, certainty, that he had left everything closed. I stood at the bedroom door for too long, just watching. The drawer was moving, millimeters, as if something inside was trying to push it. I approached, slowly, and my voice whispered, clear as water, "You know what you need to do." I slammed the drawer shut. The noise echoed through the apartment. Silence. Absolute silence. I breathed a sigh of relief. And then, it began. Beats. Light. Rhythmic. Coming from within the wood. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Like fingers knocking on a door. Asking permission to enter. Or to go out. I was falling apart. I stopped accepting jobs. I stopped answering calls. My mother left 3 voicemails that I didn't have the courage to listen to. I barely ate. I barely left the apartment. And when I did leave, I came back. Because some part of me needed to know. I needed to understand what it wanted. The drumming continued for days, always at night, always at the same rhythm. Talk, talk, talk. I tried to ignore it. I put on headphones with music at maximum volume. It didn't help. Too felt the beats, as if they were inside my head. So, on Friday, exactly 1 week after the first time I heard my own voice, I woke up in the middle of the night. I don't remember going to sleep. I was in bed, fully dressed, lights off, and all 5 drawers were open, not ajar. Open, completely pulled out, exposed to the dark. My body froze. I couldn't move. I just stared, and then I heard it. It wasn't a whisper. It was a dialogue. Several voices, all mine, conversing inside the drawers, overlapping, urgent. He is awake. He can hear now. Finally. How long is he going to make us wait? Tears began to stream down my face. I no longer knew if I was dreaming, if I was crazy, if I had crossed some invisible line and lost control. One of the voices was louder than the others. It came from the middle drawer. It was my voice, but different. More empty. "Let me out." I trembled. "I just need your permission." My mouth was dry. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. Say I can. That's all, and I'll stop. And then I remembered. I remembered my grandmother. In the last months of her life, She lived alone. My mother visited her on weekends and always came back worried. "She's talking to herself," she would say. "Conversing with someone who doesn't exist." I never took it seriously. Dementia, loneliness, old age. But now I understood. She had heard that that's the same thing. And perhaps she had given permission. I got out of bed. My legs barely supported me. I approached the dresser. The drawers were motionless, but I could feel it. I felt something watching me from inside them. "Just say it." My voice whispered again. "It says I can leave." I looked inside the middle drawer, empty but cold, freezing, as if an impossible wind were blowing from within. And then I said, "No." Silence. Absolute. The voices stopped. I closed all the drawers, one by one, slowly. The next day, I called a furniture removal company. I paid extra for them to take the dresser away immediately. I didn't care where it was going. I just wanted it gone. When they left, I took a deep breath for the first time in weeks. I thought it was over. But 3 nights later, I woke up alone in the dark, and I heard my own voice coming from the bathroom mirror. "Did you really think closing the door would stop me?" I looked in the mirror, and my reflection smiled. But I wasn't smiling. My mouth moved on its own. The words came out of my throat, but I didn't think them out. "Thank you for letting me leave." Since then, sometimes I say things I don't mean. My mouth moves. Words that aren't mine. Thoughts I don't recognize. I never gave permission. But I think silence is also an answer. And maybe I waited too long. If you listen to the end, you're already one of us. Subscribe so you're not alone when the next whisper comes.